So you bought yourself a Brown's gas machine and now it's time to clean it. Hi, my name is Shannon and I am a hydrogen therapist at the iHG Collective here in Ixtapa, Mexico. Today we are doing a tutorial on cleaning the iHG-600 Brown's gas machine. This is the fun part. Not really. But anyways, so what we like to do before we start to clean the machine is to set up all the things that we need beforehand. In this jar, I have the lye that goes into the machine after we clean it. Here is the cleaning agent, which is also known as citric acid, and distilled water, and some salt. This is the lye that you're going to be using for when the machine is clean, and I've measured it out already, which will be 3 tablespoons to 1 liter of distilled water. This is a little bit of salt, and this is the cleaning agent for the machine, which is citric acid, and we use 3 tablespoons to 1 liter for the deep cleaning of the machine. And this is distilled water, which you can buy at just about any pharmacy. If this seems a little daunting, not to worry. When you order the deluxe package, the machine comes with all of the cleaning essentials in a pre-packaged packet with explicit instructions on how to mix them and how to use it. For sake of the camera, I've already put it out so that you can see what it looks like and what has to be done with it. All right, so let's get to the part where we disassemble the machine. Safety first, so we're going to unplug the machine from behind and out of the wall. Out of the wall first, then this, in that order if you like. If not, you like to live on the edge, then by all means pull it out of the machine first. Then we're going to disassemble the cannula. This comes off, set that aside. And the tower cap comes off. Actually, you know what, we'll disassemble these first. Take these out like this and just remove the cups and set them aside. Unplug your cannula and or bubbling stone, whichever one you have plugged into the front, and set that aside. Next would be to undo these. Now these are a bit of a problem at times. They're very tight in order to keep the gas in. So all you have to do is hold this and spin it until the cannula comes out. Lefty, loosey, righty, tighty does not apply in this particular instance. It's the opposite. Unplug this and unplug that. And then you can set this aside as well. This water will be dumped out eventually. This one you have to unscrew the cap because this hose coming out is not able to be dismantled. Once you have the cups removed, then you can remove the tower cap, which is very simple. You just have to spin it and off it comes. And we also set that aside. Now we're gonna dump the water out of the machine into this. Now normally you can just dump it right down the sink, but for the sake of this video, we're using a bowl so that you can see what comes out. This water does not get saved and reused, it gets dumped. Now try and get as much of the dirty water out as possible, which means you have to have Herculean strength to stand here. I'm just kidding, you don't, it's not that heavy. Now, if you've been using your machine and then decide to clean it, the water inside could be a little bit warm, so don't stick your finger right in it like I just did. Be cautious, don't drink it, don't get it on you. It does have lye in it, but it's pretty much all hydrolyzed at this point, so it's harmless. Don't drink it. Now, when I clean my machine, I like to pre-mix the lye solution so that it is cool by the time we want to put it into the machine after we've done the cleaning. When you mix the lye and the distilled water, it creates an exothermic reaction and it generates its own heat. So a glass jar is imperative. Do not use plastic and do not use aluminum because it will eat it. Stainless steel is also fine. I like glass because then I can see what's happening. So I'm going to pour a liter of the distilled water into the lye solution, and then I'm going to set that aside for it to cool down. To mix the lye, I use one of these, and sometimes you can just use a regular spoon as long as it's clean and sanitized so that no contaminants get into the solution, and just stir it up until the lye crystals disappear. Now, generally they suggest wearing gloves for this, but I like to live life on the edge, so I'm doing it without. But if you feel the need to do that, please do, and just stir it up until all the crystals have dissipated. Also, try not to inhale it because it does give off a vapor that will make you cough. So now we're going to prepare the cleaning solution, which is 3 tablespoons of citric acid with distilled water, roughly a liter. And then this is going to go into the machine to clean it. This does not create an exothermic reaction, so you do not have to worry. Just give it a stir. Now I know what you're asking me. How am I going to fit that in the machine? So after you've mixed up the citric acid with the distilled water, don't forget to add a teaspoon of salt as well. How am I going to pour that into the machine without pouring it all over the place? Well, normally most people would choose to use a funnel to put the solution into the machine. I, however, do not have one. I use a big syringe. It's a lot of fun. So just pull it up like this and fire it into the top of the machine. Once we get the entire solution in, we're going to plug it back in and put it comes with a little cap that you take off to put the tower cap on. We're going to put that back on. Once we put the solution inside and the cap on, then we're going to run the machine for 30 minutes with the citric acid solution inside, and that's what actually cleans it. So set a timer, flip the switch, and away we go. Right, so 30 minutes is up. Now we're going to empty all the cleaning solution out of the machine and replace the lye water. Ooh, look at all the leftover lye crystals that were in the machine. This is exactly what you want to see when you're dumping out the cleaning solution. All this black stuff is actually the hydrolyzed lye crystals that have already been depleted. Now the next step is to rinse out the machine with some warm water. Now keep in mind, you always have to use distilled water when you're doing anything with this machine. You cannot use tap water, you cannot use bottled water. It has to be distilled because distilled water ensures that there are no impurities in the water that could potentially be harmful to the inner workings of our machine. So we're going to pour that in. So after we've made sure that the rinsed water has come out clean, we're ready to add the new lye solution to the machine. Now again, you should probably use gloves, but because I like to live on the edge, I'm not doing that today. I'm just going to use my favorite syringe here. And take every little drop that's in this jar and fill up the machine.
Okay, go on the water gauge.
This is the water gauge where you can see the line to where you're supposed to fill it. Once it hits that, you're good to go. We are almost there, so I probably won't have to add any more distilled water to the unit as it is. Just a reminder, for safety's sake, it is wise to wear gloves, and when you're mixing the lye solution, you may even want to wear some protection on your eyes, like some safety goggles, because if you get it on you, it is a little on the burny side. Now, the good thing is if you do get it on you, the only way that you can nullify that reaction is with a little bit of vinegar, and it's almost instantaneous. It's the relief that you will feel. I've done this to myself, and as you can see, I'm not scarred to death. Okay, now we're going to put everything back together. Now, the order in which you reassemble the machine is somewhat irrelevant. I have done this so many times, I don't even follow the same procedure each time. But in this case, we're gonna put the cups back on. I've emptied out the water that was already in them, and I'm going to be replacing it with clean distilled water in both cups. Fill it up to the fill line right there. New bottle. Number 1 and number 2. Make sure you fill it to the correct line, otherwise your gas production will be compromised. And then we put the lid back on. It's easier to turn the container than it is to try and turn the lid. So when you keep that in mind, that one goes there. This one goes here. This tube connects into the first one, and we're gonna go the opposite way what you normally would. Just hold the cannula and twist the spinny thing here and it will tighten. Make sure you get it nice and tight, otherwise you risk gas leaks, which is definitely not something that we want. Next comes the tower. That goes on. Again, nice and tight, not so tight that you're not going to be able to get it off again. And then connect this one to the second cup. Wait, cut that. As I mentioned in the first one, make sure that this is nice and tight, because the number one frequently asked question from our iHG Collective customers is, why is my machine not producing gas? And 9 times out of 10, it's because something is not tight and the gas is escaping. So once we get that on nice and tight, then we can plug it back in, turn it back on, and you're good to go. Now, another thing that I should mention is that this cleaning process should take place roughly every 100 hours. So depending on how much you actually use your machine, once a month is good. And if you use it less, then once every 2 months is also good. You just want to make sure that you can keep it in the most pristine condition as possible to get the best results for gas production. Now, like I mentioned, make sure if something happens and your machine is not producing gas, the first thing that you should check are these 2 tubes right here, because they could be cross-threaded. Now, as I mentioned before, it's very important to make sure that everything on the cups is tight and that the lids are not cross-threaded. That will be the number one reason why your machine's not producing gas, and this is the number one question that we get asked: why is my machine not working? Turns out everyone puts the cups on wrong. The caps themselves are the ones that you have to make sure that is on correctly. This part right here. Nice and tight, not too tight that you can't get it open again. And there you go. Make sure that you turn the bottles versus trying to turn anything else, because the tubes can get twisted up and create a blockage, basically, like when you put a kink in a garden hose. So the best way to do it is to move the bottles and not the lids. Same with the tubes. That concludes our cleaning tutorial for our Brown's gas machine. And if you have any other questions, feel free to get a hold of us on our website. And if you don't have one of these machines, you can also find all the information on how to get one on the website as well. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Mana tu ibu-ibu, kita lihat kan ha, kata mana tu.